Welcome to another edition of our unique NUFC podcast. It's fair to say it's been another roller coaster week at Newcastle United, but now the Toons stand just 3 points, possibly 90 minutes away from Champions League football. Just let that sink in since escaping relegation, please, because it's a massive thing to say. Welcome to Black and White with Arab News.
Steele's not really had much to do, but here's the latest corner. It's in! Oh, gee! Own goal! Trippier fired over the corner kick towards the near post, and it looked as though it took a touch off a Brighton defender and flew across Jason's.
There was only ever one guest we could have today to look at the last 10 days at Gallagher. Yes, it's Newcastle United's leading journalist, Liam Kennedy. But before we say hi to him, it's a warm welcome back to Ali Khaled, our Arab News sports editor. Blamed by many at St James's Park, thousands of the Geordie faithful for our fall to the Arsenal. Ali, how are you? Relieved?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, back in Dubai now. It was a great trip. And as I said, everyone was incredibly welcoming and generous in Newcastle. I had a fantastic time, incredible atmosphere at the start of the match. Not the result everyone wanted. And I was told in no uncertain terms, do not come back, because I brought bad luck. In all seriousness, I think looking back at that game, I know I've said it so many times this season. Every time Newcastle have had a bad result or a slight dip in form, they've answered all the questions that have been thrown at them, in style. And I don't even think the result against Arsenal, warranted any panic. Arsenal are a very good team. They were going for the title, of course. And I think it was just in the circumstances, the excitement around the game and the hype and all that, it was very disappointing. But really, they came back. I thought the 2-2 draw with Leeds finally was a good point for both teams. I mean, I actually think it was not a bad result at all. And obviously the win against Brighton now back into on form in style. And look, you talk about like the race for the title, for the Champions League, but also like the relegation. Everybody's scrambling to put those run of games. It was like if we put a run of like 4 or 5 games, we might get out of the relegation zone. If Liverpool put in a run of 7 or 8 games, they might get back into top 4. Newcastle had already done their run. Like eight wins, the 8 points in the bank. In the end, really like have helped them, and now they're very, very close.
Great stuff. Liam, before the Brighton wash-up and your thoughts on a fantastic performance, just a word on the Leeds game to put this to bed. Was it such a bad result? I mean, if you read it the day after, obviously we're all wiser after the Brighton game, but, a result against a fighting Leeds United's side, what Elland Road's like, we all know as Toon fans, and the canny behaviour of Big Sam. You put that 4 points together as a package in a week, it looks okay, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I think there was a little overreaction because I think people were panicking a touch, just because the idea of the Champions League for so long for a club like Newcastle United was the unattainable. It wasn't even a pipe dream because it was so unattainable. The idea of returning back to this competition that holds so many amazing memories for supporters. And I mean, let's put this into context. Outside of Newcastle and Leicester, there aren't really many English clubs who have managed to break that sort of top 6 teams of getting into that competition in the last 20 years. There just hasn't been any, really. But there was panic because it meant so much to everybody. But Newcastle only really in the last month and a half have dropped 4 points. And that's kind of the bracket that they're in now, is that teams at the top win games. And when you do take that slight dip off, as Arsenal have found at the very top, that you struggle and you don't make up the same kind of ground that you did when Newcastle were further down the league, like they have been in previous seasons. I don't think it was a bad point. I actually had the feeling it was a hard one to assess because they were 12 minutes away from winning that game. And it felt almost at the time, speaking to a lot of Leeds fans at the game down there at Elland Road, they were sort of feeling like it wasn't quite enough for them. And there was also a feeling with Newcastle like that isn't quite enough for us. We want that barrier. And Liverpool have been fantastic, really fantastic. The pressure that they've put on, the games that they've won. They've gone on a run that only clubs like Man City or Liverpool can, where it is just relentless winning. You don't see many others do that. But every question that's been asked, apart from the questions in the cup final this season, have been answered by Newcastle United. I think it's all credit to them because they haven't got an experienced squad in these kind of situations. They haven't been there and done that like everybody else at the top end. And essentially, I think they've been a real breath of fresh air to the Premier League this season in the manner in which they've gone about their business. And again, even last night, they weren't really at their best against Brighton, but managed to score 4 goals and probably could have had 8 on another day.
Yeah,
they've been a really breath of fresh air at the Premier League this season.
Ali, just touching on that Brighton game that Liam's talking about, because it could have been 7 or 8. It was one of those games which I say to you, and I've said it on this show before, when Redders feels comfortable, then I know Newcastle are playing well. But there is a pattern at the Toon, Ali. We focused on it this season. They get out the blocks like Usain Bolt, and they look to kill sides with that early goal, possibly 2, and that's it. Teams even like Brighton, who have been formidable this season, they can't live with it.
Yeah, especially at St James's Park. I mean, we've seen it time and again. We on the pod we talk about it. How often do we talk about when we're looking forward to a game? We say like we expect Newcastle to be on the front foot and all that, and especially against teams they're expected to beat. I think even against Arsenal, the crowd was behind them, and they started really well. They hit the post and should have had a penalty as well. They were really on the front foot. Once
spin a coin on that game, Ali. Sorry to interrupt, but you spin a coin on that game, which is why I wasn't too desolate about the Arsenal result. Because on another day, Newcastle would have been 2 or 3 up in the first 15.
Yeah. To be honest, it was just take the lead. Take the lead changes the whole game. I think Arsenal had to weather that storm of not conceding, and Newcastle had those 2 really really good chances. So constantly see them on the front foot, starting like that again yesterday. And the positive thing, I mean, I think the first goal came on 22 minutes. I'm not sure exactly when it came, but again, it doesn't have to be like a very early, first 10 minutes, first 5 minutes, first 10 minutes. Although they've done that quite a lot. It's just like they keep going. Momentum. The style of play is just so exciting to watch. As Liam said, it's been a breath of fresh air, and like now we're nearing the end of the season, and you see like they've done it throughout. They've really, I keep saying it, but they've answered every question that's been thrown at them. This was supposed to be a difficult game against Brighton, and as you say, they could have scored so many, like much more than the 4 that they did.
I'm relaxed. So I've got 1 foot in Europe. I was showing Liam my passport just before we came live on the pod. So that shows you, because I am the most nervous Newcastle United supporter in the history of Newcastle United. But Liam, listen, so many special performances in that Brighton game. But special mention to Miggy Almiron for me. If Casida's the next big thing, he's going to wake up with nightmares this morning. Literally. He didn't have the best of games, but Almiron was part of the reason. What a performance he put in last night.
Yeah, it's been an interesting end of the season for Miggy. He got that injury and has found it hard to get back in the team, which is quite remarkable given when you think he started the season on fire. He's got 11 goals to his name. But I thought last night we saw a real return to that start of the season form. Fearless runner with the ball, works so hard for the team. But you mentioned me. It would be wrong of me not to mention the 2 fullbacks on the day. I thought they were absolutely outstanding. Kieran Trippier's set piece delivery has taken a bit of criticism from Newcastle United fans in recent times, simply because I've always flipped it on its head, and the problem isn't necessarily Trippier's delivery. It's more we haven't got enough attacking players to go at the ball.
Availability.
There's a lot of big players, but none of them really aggressive attackers of the ball in the area. But we've seen a different side of that last night. And on the other side, Dan Burn, against his old club,
superb.
He was absolutely brilliant. Put a great shift in down that left-hand side. And it was a real performance that was needed from a lot of players, because let's be honest about this, injuries are really starting to hit now. This team looks like it's kind of ran its course, but continues to keep grinding out the results. Like you say, it could turn out to be a really valuable point at Leeds, and then a fantastic win. And arguably, I thought yesterday was probably the hardest of the 3 games that they've got left.
Okay.
Yeah, Pete, I just follow up on the point about the two fullbacks, but about the team in general. They whenever they've had like slight dip, as we said, they've come back strongly. I think the two fullbacks in particular, as Liam just mentioned, they've always stepped up. I feel like, like there's been, how many times have we mentioned that, is it time for Matt Targett to come in? Is Dan Burn going to be the weak link that everyone's going to target and all that? And time and again, he's just, really put in great performances. Trippier, as we expect, and I think in those few difficult moments, I think the big players in Newcastle really have stepped up. They might have a slight dip, but they come in. Bruno being one of them, of course, Joe Linton. At one point we were saying Callum Wilson's legs looked to have gone around the cup final, if you remember. And the Man City game afterwards, I was thinking, we need to take him out of the firing line. And Eddie Howe, the way he's handled it, him and Isaac, both, the big money signing and obviously the senior striker already at the club. I think the big players have stepped up at the right moments, time and again. And a credit to them, and like I said, the season's almost over. And, you could look back and, very, very few games you can say people have dropped the standards.
Absolutely. That's why we're fans and not on the bench. But it's great fun trying to predict what's going to happen. But I have to say, Eddie Howe and his team, they've been absolutely phenomenal in the way. Ali, I was listening back to the podcast last week and you nailed it. You said that it's not a touch of gold that he's got. Every piece of research that Eddie Howe has done, it's done for a reason. And again, it was proven last night. Listen, staying with you, Ali, let's look around at the games this weekend, which we tend to do on this podcast. As it stands, Atoon will seal a return among giants with a win on Monday evening, whatever may happen. But Man United and Liverpool, they've got tough games themselves this weekend, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, Liverpool home to Villa. Obviously, the way they're playing, you probably expect them to win. Villa have been very good, very, very good recently and this season. You'd think Liverpool win, but I think now with Newcastle so close, the pressure is on Liverpool probably to, obviously they need to win both their games. Manchester United have 3 games left. I still expect them to finish in the top 3. They might drop points, against. Possibly against Bournemouth, I can't see them dropping points in any of the other games. So I still think Newcastle and Manchester United, I've said it for a few weeks now, I think Liverpool have pretty much run out of games. As Liam said, they've been brilliant, quite playing good football as well, like scoring a lot of goals over the last couple of months. But I just think the season has been overall quite inconsistent and they've just run out of games. So it is exciting, and I think there's a little bit of pressure on Manchester United and Liverpool, but I expect the top 5 to finish as it is.
I was just going to say, you took the words out of my mouth, the 2 to finish third for you, Ali, right? Okay, yeah. Interesting. Liam, Eddie's warning, the job's not done. This is where my Newcastle kicks in. Another massive game on Monday night. Everyone thinks that Brighton was the hard part of it, but we know what football is. Discounting Newcastle United and our worries, but football is a strange game. Look at Sheffield Wednesday. So it's a massive game again.
Yeah, nothing's over. Newcastle United still need to make sure they get something. Arguably a win. A win absolutely secures it. A draw pretty much puts it there, depending on what happens with Liverpool. I expect Liverpool, it wouldn't surprise me if they went and won all of their games. It wouldn't surprise me as well if Manchester United went and won all of their games remaining this season. So strong at Old Trafford, and they've got 2 of the last 3 at Old Trafford, which makes a big difference. But Newcastle United can only do, and it's one thing that Eddie Howe's really been banging the drum recently when people ask him questions about pressure, Liverpool, Manchester United, whoever it may be. He's always said, look, we deal with what we can deal with. It's wasted energy thinking about how other teams are performing, and you can't control it. So you can only control what you're doing. And I think it's the same on Monday night. The crowd were excellent last night. Who stuck with the team, even in those difficult moments in the second half, really stuck with them. And I think we'll see more of that on Monday night. And I feel like it could end up being a bit of a party atmosphere. I do think, having seen a lot of Leicester recently, I don't see any way, shape or form that they will come to St James's Park and cause Newcastle United, even an injury depleted Newcastle United, enough problems or keep them out enough. I think there's goals that we had. And if there's a team in the Premier League at the moment, apart from Manchester City, who are really chasing those goals, you've got to say it's Newcastle United.
A last home game of the season, party atmosphere against Leicester. Does it ring any bells? I'll leave that to the hardcore fans because they should. It was 6-0 at half time as well, giving a clue away there. Ali, listen, we're talking about Leicester. We've highlighted their poor season in the last couple of podcasts. Actually, they've cropped up in conversation. Is it too little, too late for them, or
Yes.
do you think it's a last hurrah for them on Monday?
No, I think it's too little, too late. When we watched them against Liverpool last week, and they were poor, very poor, I think. And that's playing at home, really. I mean, again, you expect them, to start off on the front foot, the crowd behind them and all that. But it's, there's a reason why these, clubs like that are, or teams like that are, at that point, at this point in the season, in that position. They can barely put any sort of run together, expecting them to every year you get to the start, the stage of the season, and teams start saying, well, if we win 3 out of 4, or if we win 4 out of 5, we'll get out.
You haven't done that
you haven't done that all year, it's not going to happen now. And with Leicester, watching them last week, they went good. I think, Liam hit the nail on the head. It's going to be such a big prize for Newcastle at home. Last home game of the season, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And it's going to be a big party atmosphere. Champions League is on the line, and they know with one win they can absolutely confirm it. I can't see anything but a comfortable Newcastle win.
I'm on EK website as we speak, Liam. I'm looking. I'm quite tempted to fly in as this podcast goes out just for that party atmosphere. It's going to be absolutely superb. Listen, we've seen nominations out for Premier League Player and Young Player of the Year, so I'm going to throw you boys both a curveball as both respected sporting journalists in your field. Who better than to have you two? There's three team players, if I'm not mistaken, nominated. But let's get the real experts' view. Let's get you two boys. Start with you, Ali. Have you got and it can be anyone as well. Please don't think it has to be Newcastle United. But look out for a Premier League player and a young player of the season who floats your boat.
I mean, just in isolation, it's got to be Erling Haaland, really. You look at, he's been nominated in both. I'm not sure how the voting will go, if you get one, you don't get the other and all that. But he's the obvious nomination. Interesting about Saka being in there as well. Saka and Odegaard from Arsenal. Obviously, they've had a great season. Odegaard, I mean, another question for both of you is where should the line be drawn at young player? Is it, 24, 25? Is that
totally
still young, I think 20, 22, 23 is about right, So I'm not sure about Odegaard. He's been great. But both him and Saka, I think, have shown a bit of tiredness near the end of the season as Arsenal struggled in certain games. I think the Newcastle nominations, Trippier, very solid, of course. In the young player of the year, I really like the nomination of Isaac. I think he's going to be. He's already shown he's brilliant, and I think he's just going to get better and better. In another season, taking Newcastle, playing such a big part in taking Newcastle, to the Champions League, should they cross the line soon, would be played. But it's a strange one because Haaland's in both of them, and it's hard to look beyond either of them. It's the same thing with the manager's nomination. I know Eddie Howe's, and I mean Eddie, any other season probably would walk it, really, the job that he's taken them from relegation 16 months ago to this. But with Pep in it and the way City are playing and probably winning the treble, I feel like Man City has really skewed, any sort of idea of performances. But I think Botman and Isaac in the young player of the year, very good nominations. I would have given it probably to Isaac, with Newcastle going to the Champions League, but we'll see because Erling Haaland is in both.
With black and white glasses on, Liam, let's do it in any one. Player and young player at St James's.
At St James's?
Yeah.
Right. So, I think I have to agree. Well, Ali makes a really interesting point. I couldn't believe when I seen the Premier League, the ages of the Premier League ones for the young player. I've got to be honest, I thought Alexis McAllister, he certainly looks a lot older than what he actually is. I couldn't believe he was only 20, just turned 24. But yeah, it's too much. I think Erling Haaland wipes the floor with everybody in both categories. He's a phenomenon. He's just an unbelievable footballer who's taken the art of goal scoring onto a whole different level in the English game. A real birth of a superstar, I feel, this season in the Premier League. But going to Newcastle United, I think player of the season, it's a tough one. It's a really tough one. I would actually potentially go, if you didn't pick Kieran Trippier, who I think's been outstanding, I think Joe Linton's potentially be Newcastle's player of the season because of his consistent levels. A real shame that Sean Longstaff got that injury a few weeks ago because he was in such a rich vein of goal-scoring form. And I think he would be in double figures now if he'd been allowed to stay out on that left-hand side. But such is his versatility that he's performing a midfielder enforcer role now these days rather than a forward role. And it's quite incredible to see, given how many struggles he's had in a black and white shirt over the years. Young player, can't argue with Ali on that one. Isak for me. Isak is a real unbelievable footballer in terms of his footwork, his speed, his killer instinct. He's just got everything. And I think if Newcastle had the personnel, that they're really on their bare bones a little bit now going into the last couple of weeks of the season, I think we would have seen him brought back into the centre of the field, because despite Wilson scoring 18 goals, Isak's the best striker Newcastle have had in a long time, despite not having the amount of goals as Wilson. And I think we would have seen him move back into the middle and Wilson out of the team had it not been for injuries to the likes of Jacob Murphy.
Okay, and then got to get Ali's take on that. I was just about to say get a prediction out of Liam, but no, go on.
No, just a very quick point on that, on just focusing on Newcastle players. I do think Isak, like those, comparisons to Henry and all that are really not far off. Obviously, he's got plenty to do, but just looking at him, what in terms of potential and what he can do, he really could become one of the best strikers in the Premier League in the next couple of years, probably next season. Or he's already shown it this year. And one small point, like of all the players, just looking back on the season, I think Nick Pope's done a really good job. I think, people will remember that game against Liverpool, obviously missing the cup final. There was a couple of nervy moments after that. Everyone's like, but I think in general, he's been excellent. I think he should be England's number one. I said it right at a long time ago, especially in comparison to the one who is number one at the moment. So I just think Nick Pope, even against Arsenal, when they were 1-0 down, it was quite a nervy that he pulled off a couple of excellent saves, from Odegaard. So, I think in general, he's been really, really good. When you mentioned the best players, like Trippier, Isak up front, Joe Linton, Botman's had a great season. I think you have to mention Nick Pope as well.
No mention there for mine, which is Bruno G.
Yeah, of course. It goes with that saying.
Died off a little bit toward the end of the season, obviously carrying that injury, which Liam reported on a few weeks back. So we look forward to getting him back to full fitness. But what a player, even at 70, 60%. He still dictates a game, and fantastic. So he's mine. Listen, Liam, going back to it, give us a prediction for Monday night's party, hopefully.
I think we'll see a lot of goals, and I'm not often one who predicts this kind of result, if ever. But I think we'll be looking at a 5 or 6. I do think we'll see no matter what happens with Liverpool, if they drop points, it will still be a party atmosphere. I think Leicester, like I say, I watched that Liverpool game. Liverpool got 3. It could easily have been 7, 8. If Liverpool had really put the foot on the pedal and been clinical in that game, it would have been a cricket score. And I think there could be something like that on Monday, because I just don't see any resolve. I've seen Tielemans and Maddison fighting it out on the pitch almost at times, arguing with each other. And that's the kind of territory to get into, to go over an old newspaper phrase. It's kind of cracked badge territory, isn't it? Where everybody's all the cracks are falling apart. And I think I'm saying 5 or 6. And then I know that's people might think that's a little bit arrogant or a little bit not sort of missing the point. I would take 1-0 will do me. But I really do think they'll hit home on Monday.
You would take 1, and just to back up your point, Liam, I have to say that. Not just because it sounds like Newcastle are going to score 5 or 6, but genuinely, in a lot of games this season, Newcastle United could have scored 5 or 6 in many games. So when you say that, it's not a case of of exaggeration. Newcastle, if they hit it, look at Spurs. Spurs being the perfect example of that game. Okay, always fantastic to see Liam Kennedy. Ali Khaled, last word as always. The curtain is being primed to come down on a memorable season at St James's Park. All that remains for me to say is, are we going out in style on Monday night? Are you with Liam?
I'm 100% with Liam. I think, playing at home with what's at stake, the crowd will be up for it. Last home game of the season, everything's come together. I think we'll in time we'll look back at Leicester and think, they were gone a long time ago. I know they've been hovering and it's been a close run season, but I think Liam really summed it up well. They just looked so poor. They were conceding. You mentioned that Newcastle look like they can score 5 or 6 many times. They have scored 4 or 5 many times. And I think the style of play, lends itself to these results. In that, this is a team that's constantly going forward. And all that. In a game like this, I can see. I was going to go for like 3. I'll probably, inspired by Liam's prediction, I'm going to go for 4-0.
Fantastic. Brilliant stuff. Listen, always amazing to see Liam Kennedy. Great to see Ali Khaled as always. That's it for another edition of Black and White with Arab Views. We'll see you next week. How are Eddie Howe's Black and White Mags?